How are you? My name is Julio. I'm the owner of Kipus Bookkeeping, and I specialize in e-commerce bookkeeping for Shopify sellers. In this video, I want to talk about the 5 potential mistakes that Shopify sellers could be making when they do their bookkeeping. This is important because we have to keep in mind that e-commerce bookkeeping is not the same as regular bookkeeping. There's a bit more complexities and certain things we have to take care of and certain things that we can't do the way that regular bookkeeping it's done. So I hope you find this video useful, and we'll go to the first potential mistake. The first potential mistake has to do with recording net sales. So we have to remember to understand what contributes to your sales. We can't forget to cross-check Shopify sales with our bank's deposits. So basically, we have to consider what is net sales. If we record net sales straight into QuickBooks, we're neglecting things that are part of net sales. For example, we can be neglecting returns, discounts, deductions, and sales taxes. And the deposits made into QuickBooks are deposits made by the payment processors. And usually these deposits don't take into account the fees that the payment processor takes. So let's consider what is net sales and what is a part of net sales, what affects net sales when we record that into our books. So this is an example of what is net sales, right? So for example, we have the Shopify side and we have the QuickBooks Online side, right? So Shopify, it's basically the sales, the income, the returns, refunds, and the sales taxes. And we have to reconcile this with the QuickBooks Online. Now the deposits, they are net deposits by the payment processor, right? We have to take into account PayPal, fees, and other. Another potential mistake Shopify sellers can be making is the over-reliance on applications. We tend to think that we'll just connect an application to QuickBooks and everything will be done automatically, everything would be automated, and we don't have to worry about bookkeeping. So assuming that an app integrated with QuickBooks will handle everything automatically can lead to unrealistic expectations. Unfortunately, there is no app that you can connect to QuickBooks and it'll automatically do everything for you. Applications are here to help us, but they don't do everything. We can't assume that because we integrated an application into QuickBooks that everything will be taken care of magically. And speaking about applications, we don't need detailed transactions when we deal with applications, right? We need the fees and the deductions. We have to have good account mapping, and any application that syncs inventory to QuickBooks is not necessary, and all it's going to do is slow down your QuickBooks and give you a bunch of data that you don't need in QuickBooks. All right, so make sure that if you have an application integrated into QuickBooks, that you're not syncing inventory with it. Continuing talking about apps, we have to consider misuse of applications. If we sync detailed transactions into QuickBooks and rely on automation, these applications can have oversights. So like I mentioned before, it's important to make sure you're not syncing detailed transactions into QuickBooks. Make sure you find an app that brings in summarized transactions. If you bring in detailed transactions, this will dump a bunch of data into QuickBooks and it's going to slow it down, and it'll cause a headache because you don't need so much detail in QuickBooks. So there is one app that I recommend and an application that I use integrated into QuickBooks, and this application is called A2X. I like this one because it automates the process. Doesn't mean it automatically does everything for you. It just automates certain parts of the process, right? There's still oversights that we have to take into account and that we have to keep an eye on to make sure everything is categorized correctly and everything is reconciled correctly. I like A2X because it brings in daily summarized transactions, not detailed, right? So it summarizes the transactions from payment processors and it creates a journal entry into QuickBooks. So A2X is connected to Shopify and QuickBooks, or it could be connected to a different selling platform as well. Like I said, it brings in data from selling platforms. It could be Shopify, it could be Amazon, eBay, Walmart, right? A2X, like I said, brings in summarized daily transactions, so there's no data dumps. It's very important because maybe in the beginning when there's not too many sales and too many transactions, you could get away with bringing all the detailed transactions into QuickBooks, but as you grow, you're going to realize that bringing hundreds and thousands of transactions into QuickBooks is not worth it, and it's just going to slow down QuickBooks and it'll cause a headache to reconcile all the detailed transactions. Another thing that I like about A2X is that you can map it to QuickBooks. So you can create accounts in QuickBooks and map the right accounts from A2X that brings in the data from Shopify or different selling platforms. You can map that to the right account in QuickBooks. So that's good. That's a plus for A2X. That's why this is the application that I use. The next potential mistake Shopify sellers can be making is has to do with inventory management. It's essential to maintain inventory outside of QuickBooks Online to prevent slowing down the system. Handle inventory management separately from QBO. Like I said before, if you enter all your inventory into QuickBooks, if you enter all your inventory transactions and history into QuickBooks, it's a lot of transactions, it's a lot of history, it's going to be a lot of movement of inventory, and this will cause QuickBooks to slow down. At least for e-commerce sellers, it's not recommended because it's gonna we deal with high volume transactions, we deal with high volume inventory, we have to deal with clearing accounts, and we have to deal with timing differences. For that reason, it's not ideal to handle quick inventory in QuickBooks. That's why I recommend inventory management on a separate application, separate spreadsheet if you're starting, or an inventory management application if as you grow. So this is something important too to keep in mind, inventory management, that keep it outside of QuickBooks, right? So you've heard me say don't bring data into QuickBooks. Really, QuickBooks is the receiver of data, of transactions, right? So if you overload it with transactions and give it details, transactions daily, it'll slow down. It won't be able to handle it, right? So because we have to bring in data from sales channels, from payment processors, inventory, cost of goods, and sales taxes, it's essential to keep in mind that we want summarized transactions. We want QuickBooks to have the data it needs. We don't want extra data in QuickBooks. All right. So just keep that in mind, that everything comes to QuickBooks, and we that's how we prepare the books. That's how we reconcile the books and organize the books. But we don't want just a bunch of data that we don't need in QuickBooks, right? We can have separate like Shopify can have the data there. You can look for certain things in Shopify, or you can look for certain things in the inventory application, right? We want QuickBooks to be solely summarized, and so you can have a clear picture of your books. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, that QuickBooks is the receiver of transactions, and that's how we can create financial statements too. Another potential mistake Shopify sellers can make, it's if we fail to reconcile. And like I said before, maybe you integrated an application to QuickBooks and think automatically everything will be done. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We have to reconcile every month. There's different accounts we have to reconcile, right? Bank accounts, payment processors, we have to reconcile from Shopify to QuickBooks. So basically, if we fail to reconcile, could be neglecting the fees, the returns, the refunds, processor fees, and especially PayPal. PayPal can get complex. And now I want to give you a bonus, but this bonus, it's a tip, something I recommend, something I believe it's useful and worth it. Here's my bonus tip. It's important to have a specialized e-commerce bookkeeper by your side. Like I said in the beginning of the video, e-commerce bookkeeping can be a bit complex. We're dealing with clearing accounts, we're dealing with timing differences, we have to deal with different sales channels and payment processors, selling platforms. So it's not really regular bookkeeping, right? So it's important to have somebody by your side that knows what they're doing, that knows how to handle all the workflow and all the monthly bookkeeping process, so all your books can be up to date. So I just wanted to make you aware of those 5 mistakes that you could be potentially making. And if you want to learn about Shopify financial statements and why they're important to your business, you can check out the link here. Hopefully it works. And if you want to get in touch with me, there will be a link down at the bottom to help you get in touch with me. We can book a discovery call and find out how I can help you. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.